we have on the phone with us Alfonso Castillo. Hello, Alfonso.
Yes, I'm here. How are you?
Hey, there you go. How are you?
Good. Thanks for having me.
Very good. Well, thanks for calling in. We you got the story this week, huh? That was quite a shock.
Yeah.
Let the listening audience know what. I'll let you tell them what the story's about.
I imagine you're talking about Tuesday's accident. It's been a busy week. Tuesday night, got word of what's got to be the deadliest crash involving a Long Island Railroad train in many years out here. It was Tuesday night in Westbury. An SUV approaching the crossing at School Street in Westbury went around the down gates, and it was actually hit by two different trains. It was first clipped by a train going east at kind of a slow speed that caused it to spin out and then get hit by a second train coming west at a much higher rate of speed. The car was sandwiched between the two trains, burst into flames, and the three people inside the car were killed. There were some minor injuries mostly of some folks on the train. A really horrifying scene. The train derailed, crashed into the station platform at Westbury, destroyed part of it, and just a real chaotic scene.
Right. What time did that happen?
It was around 7:30 Tuesday night.
Oh, right. Oh, boy. So have they definitely determined that they went around the gate?
Yeah, police are, I think, largely relying. Well, I should say that they're looking at all kinds of evidence, but when they said affirmatively Tuesday night that he went around the gate, that was based on the testimony of a witness, an eyewitness at the scene, who, according to police, was actually involved in a minor car accident with the driver of the vehicle just before this happened. So I think the story was kind of a fender bender just outside the crossing, and then the driver of that vehicle fled the scene of that accident, went around the down gates, lights were flashing, and was hit by the two trains.
Oh, boy.
Yeah, horrifying.
Okay. Well, there's really nothing to say about that. People know better. We all know better. So, that's a shame. It just, yeah. Now, I know that this being a train accident, and of course I think your other story is about the MTA, correct?
There's so many.
I know you.
I lose track.
You've been busy. I know.
Yeah, I mean, the week began with news of a public hearing being held in Manila. Actually, right now I'm on my way to it, being hosted by the state senate to discuss the Long Island Railroad's performance.
Okay.
That was my Sunday. On Monday, we got word of the Long Island Railroad's big positive train control project being set back again because there was a screw-up in installing 4,000 pieces of equipment on trains that now all have to come off and be reinstalled. The next day, there was word of this congestion pricing plan and the restructuring of the MTA. The governor and the mayor put out this kind of master plan to restructure the MTA. Mm-hmm. The day after that, and I think it was that night that there was the crash, and the day after that there was a fare hike. Vote. Wow. A crazy week for commuters.
Well, what I was going to ask you is, since this is a train, obviously a train accident, and you brought it up, the positive, I don't know what they call that, the
positive train control.
Positive train control. I'm going to assume, but I could be wrong, that wouldn't have done anything to help this accident.
No, it's a good question, and I have heard people bring that up. No, positive train control works in very specific circumstances. I think it's generally meant to address violating a signal on the tracks, kind of going over speed.
Right.
But a situation like this where essentially at the last second somebody darts in the path of two trains.
Right.
There was nothing that was going to prevent that. Yeah. My colleague and I think you might be speaking to him shortly, is actually working on a story for this weekend, looking at what is out there in terms of grade crossing safety, whether it is engineering fixes, technology. There's all kinds of ideas. One that's picked up a lot of steam in the last week has been a proposal to kind of implement the same technology that you have with red light cameras, where they issue automatic tickets to people who violate red lights. Do that at all grade crossings, which is something the MTA's wanted to do for a number of years. But ultimately, I mean, what I hear all the time is the only safe railroad grade crossing is an eliminated railroad grade crossing, and the MTA does have plans to eliminate 7 grade crossings over the next few years as part of the third track project, including, incidentally, the one where this accident happened on Tuesday. But by next year, that thing will be shut down. But there's still, close to 300 others on Long Island, and the reality is there's no plans to eliminate the vast majority of them. It's an incredibly expensive undertaking, requires building on private property. So for the foreseeable future, cars and trains are going to continue sharing space out here on Long Island.
Right. Well, I'm familiar with that idea, especially the Massapequa Park train station. There have been, over the years, there were a few people that were hit by trains, and the only answer to that was to raise the station, which they did.
Right.
And the only problem that they have after that is someone who intentionally wants to get in front of a train.
Yeah, you get what they call trespassers, or unfortunately a lot of suicides.
Exactly.
And and that's the thing is, and I think that was the circumstances here. Is there are things you could do, and I think the MTA has done to reduce the number of accidents. One thing that became a growing problem in the last couple of years was people accidentally driving onto tracks, sometimes misunderstanding directions on their GPS.
Oh.
And it tells you to turn left, and you turn left right onto the tracks.
Yes.
And so they, over the last year, started installing these delineators, kind of these reflective little rods at crossings to show this is not a roadway. And those accidents have pretty much dried up. There haven't been any since they started doing that.
Right.
But the willful act of somebody who wants to get in the way of a train, either because they want to take their own lives, or in some circumstances, you just want to beat the train across the crossing because you're in a rush.
Right.
It's hard to stop somebody who really is determined to do that.
Yeah. That's you mentioned the camera thing. With I don't see how a camera is going to stop somebody from crossing or going past it. I mean, certainly you'll get to send them a ticket in the mail, but I don't see how that stops people. I don't know who brought that idea up as far as something to do at the crossings having to do. Well,
I think the idea is changing behavior, right? So I think they've seen. I could speak from personal experience. I know near me there's a red light camera. I am super duper sure to always come to a complete stop way before the light turns red because I don't want to get hit with a ticket. I've been hit with a ticket. It's changed my behavior at that red light. They tried something like that a couple of years ago at school zones, the automatic enforcement. If you went too fast in school zone, you get a ticket in the mail.
Right.
People slow down. I think the thought is if you can make it so every time you approach a railroad grade crossing, if you go through there, you're going to get hit with a ticket. It will change behavior. The problem is, like the red light cameras and the school zone enforcement, those aren't very popular. People, I probably get more calls about red light cameras than any other transportation issue. They're extremely unpopular, and I think some lawmakers are reluctant to support a measure that will result in people getting more tickets. But in this case, what you hear is that the person who you are looking to protect with this legislation is the violator himself, right? When a train hits a car, by and large, not much happens to that train. Even in this crash, which was particularly horrific, there were only minor injuries on the train.
Right.
And it speaks to what happens when a train meets a car. A car is just a little tin cannon. That's why.
Yeah. Well, we used to have a saying in in the limousine business was don't play tag with the trucks. They always win.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And the other thing, I've certainly heard over the years on this beat is a train is always where it's supposed to be, right? So the train's not going to come veer off of the irrelevant society that you have in here, but the train's not going to come at you at the roadway, so stay out of its way. And the other thing is, some of these issues really kind of get to the fabric of Long Island and its history. The railroad was here way before most of these roads were. They're a relic of. They were being established out here close to 200 years ago.
Yeah, very true. Well, I understand you're on a time constraint. You're going to a hearing, yes?
Yes, and I'm running late.
I don't want to hold you up. Okay.
Yeah.
I don't want to. But I'll certainly talk to you in the future. You've written 5 stories here. I could do a whole hour just with you.
But always a pleasure.
Thank you very much. And we'll talk to you soon. Okay. Take care.
Absolutely. Take care.
We want to thank Alfonso Castillo for calling.